Hey, everybody, this is Bob Goodwin, and welcome to another episode of Career Club Live. Today, I am very pleased to introduce someone who's now become a friend of mine, Ashish Pal. Ashish is a global biopharma executive who has experience in specialty pharma, mid-size, and of the largest ilk, which we'll learn more about in a few minutes. His experience covers both the U.S. and international markets. But what I have found just so compelling getting to know him over the last few months is something that we're going to call the leadership triangle that covers the importance of people, strategy, and execution. And I have rarely found someone who I think articulates those concepts as well as Ashish does. So with that, Ashish, welcome. It's so good to see you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to our conversation this afternoon.
As I do all of our conversations. This time we just happen to be pressing record.
True.
So to help people just get to know you a little bit, as we typically do, where do you mind just sharing a little bit? First of all, just like where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I was born in Bombay, India. I grew up in Bombay, India. I went to pharmacy school there, and then came to Chicago for my business school education.
Oh, at University of Chicago, Northwestern, where'd you go?
University of Vermont, Chicago.
Awesome. Very cool. And then tell us just a little bit about your family, married,
sure.
Kids.
So my wife and I have two daughters that we're exceptionally proud of. They're both on their way to pursue their passions, one with the intention of becoming a physician, and the other one that is very interested in the field of architecture and urban design.
Ah, very cool. Very creative. I love that. We will get into your career arc here in just a second. I think that'll be the first place that we go. But before we do that, what do we find you doing outside of work? What are you interested in? What are your hobbies or passions? What do you like to read about?
So, I grew up, my parents were very much, they were real great companions, really amazing friends. And very different. My father was a pharmaceutical professional, and my mother was an artist. And she was an oil and acrylics painter, and she painted on different media. And during the latter stages of her career, she also got into writing. So to your question, I really enjoy the arts. I am a big museum buff. Really enjoy visiting museums around the world. I also really enjoy photography. And I am a lover of classical music, all forms of classical music. But
what's your favorite? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, please.
What's your favorite museum?
So in the New York area, I like the Museum of Modern Art. Of course, there's nothing to like about the Louvre in Paris.
Of course.
Just Amsterdam, as an example, has just some of the most amazing museums. Recently we took a trip to Vienna. And I was so amazed with entire parts of the city that had what they call the museum mile. And fortunately, the museum bug has bitten every single family member. So something that we all do on vacations, on museum type vacations, is definitely visit a lot of historical sites and definitely do a lot of museum hopping. So something, fortunately, that not only my wife enjoys, but my kids also enjoy very much. So it makes it a lot easier.
No, that's great that you guys can do that stuff together instead of like, oh gosh, Dad wants to go to the museum again. And do you have a favorite artist or style of art that you gravitate to?
No, I think, art is such a personal experience, right? And so I gravitate to, of course, the Impressionists, but I am very interested in all forms of art from around the world. If I was to think about a form of art that I make the greatest connection to, it's painting. And it's probably because I saw that growing up. I'm a painter's son. And so I think that's kind of where I make the greatest connection in terms of a form of art that I enjoy.
We'll get on to the interview, I promise. But painting, it's just art in general, art, because I am like the least artistic person you are ever going to meet.
Oh, you're not being fair with yourself.
Well, but no, truly. But when you see that what people can create,
yes,
and it goes from their mind to, you're saying like the canvas or whatever the medium is, it's and you see it like when it's done at the highest level,
Yes.
It's like, that's like magic that people can actually produce pieces like that.
I agree. And you know what I find particularly interesting is when you're looking at a painting and then you're actually listening to the curator talk about it.
Hmm.
And you have a certain vision of what you're seeing, but then when the curator lends her or his vision of what the artist was thinking about when they painted it, to me, I just find that a very enriching experience when I listen to what I'm listening to and I'm watching the piece of art. So I think that's something I really enjoy, and I try and find the time I can to head out to museums as regularly as possible.
No, it's funny what you're saying, and we are going to get off this in a second. But when you are with someone who can explain to you and give you the backstory and like what makes this such an interesting piece of work, still subject to your own interpretation and appreciation of it. But
Right.
when you understand, like, this is where this artist was in their life when this was painted, this is what was going on in the country or religion or like whatever some of the context is, so that because there's always a story. And if you don't know the story, then you can just like walk by and go, and just like, I'm just looking at pictures. I don't know what I'm looking at. I remember going to a museum with a friend, and she was an art history major. So this is like what she knew about. And we literally spent 45 minutes just in front of one painting, getting the whole story. And it was fascinating. It was like watching a great movie. So because you could understand this is what all the artist was going through. This was a season in their life. Here's some things that you may not notice initially that make this painting really cool and unique and shows this artist's gift.
Exactly.
And their technique and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm the least arty person you're going to ever meet.
But see,
but when
you just proved to yourself that you're actually misjudging yourself. That was right there. I mean, I knew it when you even started this conversation.
I cannot create it. I want to appreciate it. I have zero abilities. But anyway, let's get on with this whole thing. Let's pretend like your career is a piece of art that has evolved over time. We kind of skipped over the career arc part of it, but something that I've really come to appreciate as we've gotten to know each other. You mentioned you're going to grad school in Chicago and stuff. Let's start with your first job out of school, because I think it's really instructive as it sort of laid the foundation for a lot of things that we're going to talk about in terms of people's strategy and execution. So I will give you that blank canvas to paint on as you will.
Thank you. So one of my first jobs out of school was with Alcon, a leading specialty ophthalmology company. And I'm a marketer by heart. When I went to business school, I got my master's in marketing and international business. And I joined the company in a marketing position as a brand manager for what was then one of the smallest categories. It was the field of ophthalmic anti-allergy products. So products for itchy allergy eyes. Shortly after we joined, we got approval for a new product from the FDA. It was an antihistamine mast cell stabilizer combination. I had the joy of launching it with an amazing team, first in the US market, and then we launched it outside the US market. But what made the journey particularly memorable, particularly challenging, and particularly instructive in terms of shaping the choices in my career is that historically, the company had called on ophthalmologists and optometrists. But as I spent time working in partnership with amazing people, and I want to stop for a second and say that as I reflect on all my experiences, be it my first job or my current role, I'm immensely grateful first to the amazing people that I have a chance to work with, attract, and retain in the organizations that I've built both in the US and outside the US. I have learned more from them than they've learned from me. I'm immensely grateful to leaders and my bosses that believed in me and that gave me the opportunities, and to the companies, of course, that I was a part of that trusted me to really ensure that I was focused on serving the mission, which is focused on patients. So coming back to my role, the market was a small market. It was a very small $15 million business at that time. But as I spent time with my team, working and listening to customers, there was a clear unmet opportunity to go beyond eye care physicians and talk to the allergists, the ENT physicians, the primary care physicians, and the pediatricians who were using systemic antihistamines, but potentially in certain cases with certain patients needed an eye drop. So we did a couple of things as an organization. We literally did a pilot where we expanded the sales force for the first time to call on a whole new set of physicians that the company had never called on. And in addition to that, this product became the first prescription ophthalmic product in the US that went direct to consumer. The combination of reaching physicians that needed a product for the eyes, specifically, or targeted therapy for the eyes, along with patients that were really looking for eye allergy relief, drove transformational performance, not just with the brand, but it exponentially expanded the market size. And so the market became much, much larger than it was when I first started in that role. So our actions, working in partnership with patients, working in partnership with professionals, really expanded the market opportunity because there was a clear unmet need, which is what marketing is all about. And this product and the franchise became one of the largest and fastest growing franchises for the companies in its 52-year history at that time. So that experience really taught me a couple of things, and it was instrumental to shaping some of the choices I made in my career. One, it was the power of really building amazing teams, people that were passionate, people that really had a clear North Star in their mind of what they wanted to do, not just with their own careers, but in the roles they were in. The power of really dreaming big and dreaming bold, and the power of really having very, very supportive leadership and very inspirational bosses that helped guide, that helped support some of the very non-traditional choices that we made along the way. And we would never have accomplished what we did as a team without that perfect combination coming together. And so as I reflect on all my journeys, it's never been I, it's always been the we team. It's been we's that we've created, that I've had the joy of creating and building in roles across companies and across geographies.
So as a young guy, your Alcon was a big company, like not small. What did you learn about risk taking, and how that's kind of informed, both how you approach marketing, but maybe more importantly, how you've approached your career?
I think in large part, more so in our impressionable years, we're shaped considerably by our leaders. And I had the joy of working with some very inspiring leaders at that point in time in my career. And fortunately, that trend has continued through my career. But I had bosses at that time that really pushed me and inspired me to dream big. And they were willing to bat for me. They were willing to make sure that they would really stand for the business cases that we put together to ask for incremental investment, which is what we had to do to basically add on a primary care sales organization that added other products into the bag of the representative, but also to take this product on national television. So I think that whole experience was instrumental in shaping how I thought about my own leadership style, where there's so much you can do if you dream big, if you dream bold, but just the dream is not going to cut it. It's the dream backed with a plan. It's the dream that is caveated very clearly in the context of a strategy. Then really dial back into a very clear in market or in region or in country execution plan. So, but you got to start with a vision and a North Star. And I remember I had a screensaver on my computer at that time. And the screensaver said, allergy greater than $200 million. And I had people that walked into my office and said, Ashish, that's never going to happen. And I looked at all of my team and said, together, we will achieve what people never thought we could achieve in this space. And we did all of that and more. So I think it's having amazing leaders that inspire you, that critique and give you tough feedback, that challenge you to dream big. But it's also then surrounding yourself with an amazing team that thinks and acts and is able to pivot with agility, but also has a lot of passion to make a significant difference for patients. And I think there's another element to this story. It's fun. You know, the word fun sometimes is underappreciated. Work becomes most meaningful when you're having fun with your teams, when you're having fun in what you do every day. Because then it doesn't feel like anything else, but you're having fun while you're achieving your objectives for the company and achieving your goals professionally for your people and for yourself. So I think the whole journey, and literally one of the things that we did at that time, allergy was a boring category. Yeah. We actually launched a mascot. And we called the mascot, it was an eyeball, a giant eyeball. And we called the mascot Patty Patnall. Right? And this mascot was something that really lit up the room when we took it to conventions. So it suddenly brought in a lot of buzz into a category that was a yawner that people didn't really care about. You know, when we did market research initially, like, it's only allergy. But this is where I think the marketer across the organization came alive, and we did something that was memorable, that was long-lasting, that addressed the needs of patients, and we had fun doing it as a team.
No, that's cool. I'm going to try and relate 2 or 3 thoughts together here real quick. You talked about big, bold, kind of risk-taking, right? We've talked about passion, purpose, North Star. I think we're hitting on enjoyment and fulfillment, and yes, even fun in work. Put that in one place. It feels like a lot of times people are inhibited or trapped by fear.
Yes.
Right? If I put out a big, bold vision, what did Jim Collins used to call it, a BHAG, right? Big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm kind of setting myself up for failure, right? Because they said, we're going to do 2,000% growth. And people are like, dude, you can't do that. And, you only got 1,500%, so I guess you failed. Like, how do you help people come out of the shell of, a fear-based, scarcity-based mentality? I'm just being realistic, Ashish. I'm not negative. I'm just being realistic. And you're like, no, there's so much more that we could do. Let's operate out of, confidence. We are going to look at the data, but we're going to build a team. We're going to build a strategy, right? We're going to go execute it with excellence. How do you get people out of this fear shell? Because fear in some ways is safe because I'm never putting myself out there.
It's a great question. I think it comes, fear is driven by repercussions of fear, or repercussions of failure, sorry. If you fail and there are significant repercussions associated with failure, then I am really skittish and nervous about failing. But if you create a culture where fear is actually celebrated, or rather failure is celebrated, because there is so much learning that comes from failure. And if you create the culture where people are going to say, you know what, I'm going to dream big, I'm going to dream real, but I'm going to dream big, I'm going to dream bold. And as I put that dream together in the context of a concrete operational plan, not everything may go per plan. But if I fail, I'm not going to get let go. Actually, my efforts are going to be rewarded and recognized. And that's the culture that I saw in the organization. And that's the culture that I learned from. That's the culture that I try and build on. And so what we've done across several teams that I've been a part of is literally recognize a fearless to fail leader, right? Where you are saying, you know what? You chose to do something which is completely atypical, completely out of the box, as long as it's compliant. But you chose to do something and chose to think about something which is completely atypical. You may or you may not succeed. But if you don't succeed, you're not going to get penalized for it.
Right.
And I think it's when people are most concerned about being penalized in any form whatsoever is when people are not going to try. So I think culture is a key one. I think the other element is the type of people that are on the journey with you.
That's right.
Right? I mean, there are people that are risk averse, and there are people that are thoughtful risk takers. We're not looking for irresponsible risk takers, but we're looking for thoughtful risk takers, or people that are bold in the way that they're thinking about an opportunity, or bold in the way they're thinking about a challenge. And so I think it was also about pulling together teams that had the ability and the desire and the passion to dream big. And then really make sure that we were stitching together a perfect quilt, taking into consideration perspectives from the customer, taking into consideration perspectives from the patients, taking into consideration perspectives of the product and the science, right? To really achieve what we felt we had the ambition to achieve.
Right.
Did we have our learnings and our failures along the way? Absolutely. But I think we didn't give up. And I think this is where there's something that I read recently and it really, really appeals to me. And it's some of the work that, Angela has done, Angela Ducksworth.
Mm-hmm.
And, the work around grit, right? Her work around grit, where she talks about really linking grit. And she talks about the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals, right? And I think it's when you bring that combination together, and the way Angela Duckworth talks about it to me is very inspiring. I think you could do amazing things as an individual, but more critically as a team. So I think it's the culture, but it's people, and making sure you're bringing together people that have that grit to really walk through walls and achieve what is seemingly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
then, of course,
go ahead, please.
The organization that actually not only allows it, but inspires it.
So because we're into the people section, going back to this leadership triangle, let's just go ahead and softly land into that, which is what you were describing was, yourself learning how to dream and be a bigger, bolder risk taker, but you were in a healthy sandwich, if you will, that you had leadership that was encouraging, supportive. If it doesn't work out exactly the way that you think that it might, which it probably won't, because things rarely go the way they're supposed to, but it was a safe place, and you were encouraged, mentored to do that. And at the same time, your peers and the other folks on the team, right, were like-minded or open to being like-minded to come along and contribute to this dream. It's very interesting how you look at the different layers of the organization and how they work together. What's been your learning that you've carried forward, and how you've seen that, and as you have played in different levels in that in your career?
I think as I reflect on my experiences, not just at Alcon, but the other companies I've been a part of, and I've had the joy of being with some amazing companies, Organon, Schering-Plough, and now Merck. I think a couple of learnings as I reflect on all of my journeys. I think it comes back fundamentally to when you build teams, it's about building teams which is a constellation of people that bring diverse, broad experiences, but people that really enjoy being with one another. You've got to have that right chemistry. So it's really a team that comes together in many ways naturally, because you have people that are complementing each other in terms of their experiences, but also in terms of their personalities, right? And you build teams, and then you really kind of align these teams relative to a North Star or an ambition. And then you're going to have people that are going to be skeptical, or people are going to be cynical, right? And you and I were talking about skeptical and cynical, right? And I think I rather work with people that are skeptical than people that are cynical. Now, you can't always pick, but I think it is really building teams that enjoy being with one another, that have the passion, that have the ambition, that have very high levels of authenticity in the way they work with each other, aligned to a North Star. And then it's about, okay, the goal looks really, really audacious, virtually impossible, but how do we go about trying to crack it? What do we need to do? What choices do we need to make to really achieve that objective? And, that's a journey in itself. And so in every one of my journeys, and it's like frames or scenes of a movie, right? It's been necessarily a different role or a different company or a different geography. I think a common thread that flows through all of those experiences is building amazingly empowered, resilient, gritty, ambitious, and driven teams with people that are willing to walk through walls to achieve the objective, but also have a lot of fun along the way. It's because when you start to combine a lot of hard work with fun is when things become even more memorable. It's when things start to become even more impactful, and then it just becomes something that you so enjoy and you're so excited about that you feel you can probably achieve the impossible, and you will do everything you can with a focus on ethics and integrity, with a focus on compliance.
That's right.
To achieve a very, very ambitious goal.
When you're interviewing people or building a team, and you might be drawing on resources of folks you haven't worked with previously, so whether they're internal, external candidates, what are maybe because you talked about grit and persistence and resilience and things like that, easy things to claim, harder to prove, and people that you can have fun with and people that you're going to enjoy working with and all the things that you said. How do you draw that out in an interview?
I spend a lot of time listening, but I also spend a lot of time reading their body language. And without, of course, asking for any confidential information, I'd love to get a perspective of stories in their career that they're most proud of, but also stories that they're not proud of. because I think both those stories will tell me a lot about themselves. And I think another key element to building amazing teams is people with humility.
Talk about that.
High levels of humility, you are extremely coachable. And when you build teams that have high levels of humility, and that doesn't take away from all the other elements I talked about, but I'm trying to find that perfect combination. And we're not always successful achieving that. But when you try and build all that together with high levels of humility, I think you look at people that are constantly unlearning to relearn. You're looking at building teams that are always looking to pivot with agility. You're looking to people that are learning from others around them, whether it be their colleagues or whether it be others in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I spend a lot of time listening and observing. I'm very big on work chemistry. I want to work with people that are very authentic, that are going to basically bring their true selves to work. First as human beings, because at the most basic level or at the most highest level, we're all human beings first. Yeah. I think we can never forget that. And I think if I am surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me, that bring experiences that I don't have, that bring experiences that complement the experiences of others on the team, alongside the right attitude that combines humility with a lot of bold thinking, you are potentially on the path for great success. Mm-hmm. Always need luck, always need the right sponsorship from amazing bosses, but I'm right now focused on the team and what it takes to build that a team, right? And I think I've been blessed and I'm grateful to have worked with amazing colleagues around the world in multiple roles where we have just had amazing journeys of growth, learning, setbacks, impact, and had so much fun doing so.
Quick question, Ashish. I have such an appreciation for your international experience and, recognizing that cultures are different, right? Are some of these qualities that we're talking about in terms of risk-taking, humility, fun, agile, curious, in your experience, are these universal qualities in people, or do they tend to be more American or Asian or European or something else?
It's a great question, Bob. I think there are universal qualities in people, but they are not necessarily as apparent as you traverse cultures, right? You look at many parts of the world where people are not necessarily as outspoken as we are here in the US, where there is a lot more that is unspoken than spoken, mm-hmm. where there could be levels of passive aggressiveness. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist here in the US, but I think you could have varying levels of openness. I think language is a big element, right? And I've had the opportunity of working across parts of the world where English is not the first language. And it is really, that's when you really work with amazing colleagues that understand the local culture. And I've been blessed to work with amazing leaders of HR and finance. But talking about the team, I really look at HR as critical partners in the journey. And when I think about some of my experiences across international markets where I built teams, in some cases from ground zero, and in some cases rebuilt teams because there was a need to rebuild the team. I couldn't have done so without people that really understood the local market.
Yeah.
And I think it became such an amazing partnership because I literally spent time after we built some of these organizations up and we were well on the way to performing, where I spent every Friday afternoon with my HR leader, and we literally spent time chatting with talent across the industry. We may not have had a role open for them, but I learned so much from my HR colleagues, and I learned so much from the people I spoke with about what drives them, about some of the things that I really am inspired by, about some of the things that I think I wish we could bring into what we were doing within our organizations. So I think you have amazingly talented colleagues around the world. I think levels of exposure are different. But when I think about some of the successes we had across the international markets, it was really driven by bringing together talent that was not high on experience, but high on energy and learning agility. And because they were high on energy and learning agility, along with a lot of humility, they were very coachable. So it was that perfect combination of bringing together that right mix of people that we collectively as a team drove tremendous success with across the organization.
I loved your metaphor earlier of like a quilt. You know, I really like that. I think that that's such a great word picture for diversity, because each square in a quilt in and of its own is beautiful and stands on its own merits. But when it becomes part of a tapestry, you know, a bunch of beautiful squares all stitched together in a very creative, intentional kind of a way, you end up with something that is more beautiful than any one of those, or even the sum of all of those, which is cool. One other thing I just want to drop in that you've been talking through that is a little bit of a model that I have found that has worked with in the interview process, is looking for 4 things, and I'll give you a bonus 5th, is one is proficiency. You need to be good at what we need you to be good at. That's table stakes. And most people, you know, whether it's recruiting or interviewing, so either side of the table that you happen to be on, the conversation tends to be technical, and it's about, you know, do you know this software program or this modality or this business model or whatever it is that you're talking about? Do you know the stuff? Which is good, but that's not enough. And then you start hitting some other ones. I just wanted to kind of make sure really sticks in listener and viewers' minds. Passion. Are you motivated by what we're motivated by? Like, do you have a why for coming to work? Do you have a why for why you want to be here, being part of this team and what we're trying to accomplish? And by the way, I'm speaking in alliteration. So it's proficiency, it's first P, second P is passion. Third P you've talked about, which is great, and you've even double clicked on it, which is personality, right? One, do you want to have fun? Are you, someone who's naturally curious? Are you going to be a good fit with the rest of the team? You don't need to be like everybody else in the team. In fact, we don't want you to be like everybody else on the team. You need to be you. We need to be values aligned, but you bring your whole personality to work. Like, we want that, and we benefit from it. And then the fourth P is potential, which I'll put down to like your agility, agile learner, curious, because the game is going to continue to change. And so we need to continue to be able to change with it, right? Yeah. Plus, potentially, I haven't found my ceiling personally, so I continue to learn. But potential also, like, hey, Ashish, you're somebody we could build teams around. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're somebody that we can be part of a succession plan. You have a lot of potential for us. And then the bonus P that I'll throw in is perspiration, just work ethic. Like
Exactly.
you work hard. And so, you're going to get people that have different levels on those vectors,
On
if
those
you
dials.
will. But those are things that I find that people either don't interview for all of those. They get fixated on one thing. Like, do you care about the same stuff? Do you love dogs? We love dogs. Great. Like, you can work here. Well, okay, that's good, but that may not be the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're technically highly proficient at what we need, but you're kind of a disaster zone working with your colleagues.
Yeah.
Or like you're great today, but can you continue to be great as we need you to continue to grow, and you're going to hopefully want to continue to grow. And so whether it's as we're interviewing for people looking for those, but I would also, for anybody who's listening, if you're a job candidate or thinking about what might be next in your career, make sure that all of these are part of your narrative and not just the proficiency part. Because a great team and a great team member brings all of those elements to the party.
I agree.
So,
no, I think I couldn't agree with you more, Bob, and I think I love the way you characterize it. I think there's probably another two elements that come to my mind as I think about building amazing teams. It's what is your appetite to step out of your comfort zone?
mm-hmm.
As I reflect on my own journey, I think that it's the opportunities that I've been afforded, and I'm immensely grateful to MST for the opportunities that I've been afforded to step out of my comfort zone, where I had the opportunity to live and work in markets far, far away from home. And surrounding yourself with people that have a significant appetite to step out of their comfort zone. And I've had the opportunity to bring in talent into MST that in some cases had no experience in biopharmaceuticals, which comes back to the element around proficiency, right? And how you define proficiency. So is the proficiency sector specific or sector agnostic? And in many cases, proficiency is sector specific, but in some cases, it could be sector agnostic.
Yeah.
And I think the other element is learning agility. The environment around us is changing at warp speed. And we live in a very VUCA world today, a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. And I think you really got to have that muscle and that gut to deal with a lot of complexity and a lot of ambiguity that's flying at you in many different directions, right? And let's face it, you can control virtually nothing of it. And so how do you stand strong with your team in the face of that complexity and volatility? And it comes back to every single person in that organization and what they stand for and that what they're willing to do. And all the elements we've talked about, the passion, the proficiency, the leadership persona, the grit, the gravitas, right? I think the stepping out of your comfort zone alongside high levels of learning agility make a tremendous difference and kind of, in my mind, complete that quilt or complete the canvas of building winning teams.
Yeah. It's interesting, you stepping outside of the comfort zone. I smiled because where my mind immediately went is, and even if you don't step out of your comfort zone is going to move.
Yes.
Right. To your point about, the change, and the way that I say it is, today is the slowest day for the rest of our lives. Both the speed, the rate of change, and the magnitude of change. Today is the slowest day for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And so even if you are comfortable where you are, it's kind of the who moved my cheese kind of a thing. It's like, well, I didn't ask for it to move. Nobody's going to ask you. It just moved.
Exactly.
And so you need to have that flexibility, the grit, the resilience, to be able to deal with this, because it's going, whether you're going to be on the train or not, it's up to you. But the train is definitely leaving the station. So
Yeah,
you're better served by getting on it.
On the train, are you going to be a passenger, or are you going to make an effort to kind of navigate your organization or your team to achieve what you're set out to achieve?
That's right. But let's do this real quick, because we could spend another hour just on the people element. If I could borrow from Jim Collins in Good to Great for a second, that first thing is get the right people on the bus, and then put them in the right seats. But the question was always, do you need the strategy first, and then you hire the people to fulfill the strategy, or do you hire the right people and they'll tell you the strategy, they'll help you develop it? He's clearly in the second camp. Get the right people on the bus, they will help you figure out the right strategy. Mm-hmm. You're very, very deep in strategy. You had used the expression earlier, which is how I understand strategy, making choices, mm-hmm. making thoughtful choices. Mm-hmm. Could you, in the few minutes, we're going to get into execution and operationalizing in a moment, but just help people understand for a few minutes, Ashish, what is strategy? And maybe as importantly, what isn't strategy? What do people confuse real strategy with maybe not real strategy?
So I think, I'm going to keep this simple and not make it textbookish, but I think the way you said it in its most simplistic way is what strategy is. It's making informed, well thought through choices, taking into consideration the customer, the organization, and the environment at its very minimal. Mm-hmm. I think as you build strategy, to really ensure that you're building effective strategy, you need to ensure you have the right people that have that understanding of what it takes to operationalize the strategy. And that's where I think when you are building an organization and you're working on operationalizing strategy, because strategy is relatively meaningless if it's just a PowerPoint slide or if it's on a piece of paper. If I can't operationalize that strategy, if the strategy doesn't have a combination of high levels of ambition, but also high levels of realism, and it may sound like a contradiction, but it's not, you're not necessarily going to achieve what you want to achieve. And so it's making sure you are very clear on what your North Star is, whatever way you define your North Star. And then what are the components you need to put in place that you control to achieve that North Star? Mm-hmm. And I think at the very minimum, or at the very foundational level, it comes back to the right people. And when you bring together a constellation of people that understand what it takes to develop and formulate strategy, but then also combine that with how real is the strategy in terms of the ability to successfully operationalize and realize, that's when it matters most, because that's when the rubber hits the road.
Right. This is related, I hope, is when you've got smart people who ostensibly are motivated by the same North Star as you're describing, potentially looking at the same data analysis, fact base that you have to work from, mm-hmm. are willing to take risks, all the things that we've been talking about so far, and yet at some level fundamentally come to different conclusions. How do you get people on board with a strategy that maybe they're not at least in complete agreement with, but can be committed to?
So I'll give you an example from some of my experiences across the MST Asia Pacific region when I was in my leadership roles across some of the markets there. I think as we assessed opportunity across a certain subsidiary as a leadership team, there was a collective realization that there was a need for imminent change in our performance, but also imminent change in what was our North Star. And so it was really working in very close partnership not just as a team, but with every single member of my leadership team and capturing their perspectives. So I was not the commercial leader, but I was really looking at it as the enterprise in the context of my role.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, this is the reality of what we are doing from a performance standpoint. Here's a market opportunity. Here's what's happening from a competitive standpoint. What is the realizable opportunity we have? Let's start to quantify it. Let's start to make some assumptions behind that. What are some of the headwinds? What are some of the tailwinds?
Yep.
To achieve that North Star, we're going to have to make some tough choices. What choices are we willing to make? And so it didn't become Ashish telling the team, but I was able to really take this amazing team along in the journey. And it was not a realization that was my realization. It was our realization. And a realization that change was not an option. A realization that there was a burning platform for change. And once you got people on board with that part, then people quickly pivoted from the why to the how. And it's when people are able to make that leap from the why to the how is when everybody's wheels are spinning and they're thinking solutions. They're thinking out of the box. They're thinking all facets of the functions that they lead. And so as we continue to partner as a leadership team, we built our strategy together. And then we worked through a very, very exhaustive operational in-market execution plan of what we were going to do to turn performance around. And because there was such a significant focus on the how, there was a significant focus on every element of the how. And I keep coming back to the people factor.
Yep.
And the understanding of the market and the analytics and the competition and the choices we will make and the science behind our products. We were able to walk through this journey and stand in front of the entire organization as a we team and say, yes, here's what we need to do. Here's why we need to do it. And here's what it's going to take. And we had to make collectively some very atypical, some very bold choices. Was that an easy journey? No, it wasn't. Was there hesitation and some stops and starts along the way? Yes, it was. But did people come and bond even closer as a team as a result of that very difficult journey that we were on? Yes, we did become an even closer team. And as we went through that journey, and when we were able to turn performance around to driving significant growth, everybody was not just elated, but everybody really started to believe in the power of strategy and tying that to a very, very clear operational plan. And then to achieve that operational plan, one critical element of that operational plan is the people, which is where we made some significant changes in a very respectful way with people to drive the change that we as a leadership team felt was not a nice to do, but was a critical need to do.
So you brought up the operational part, and we'll go there in just a second. Just on strategy for a second, I want to be mindful of the time. In that kind of the messy middle, if you will, of the why and the how, and getting people aligned. One of the best tools that I have found, and it's not even a tool, that's a mischaracterization, it's a mindset, is asking what would have to be true. So rather than just shooting down your idea, that's a dumb idea, she'll never work, we can never get this product in a GP's office, like this is only for ophthalmologists and optometrists. It's like, well, what would have to be true though for us to be able to do that? Well, we would need a sales force who can go cover, like, okay, all right. We may ultimately decide we can't do that, but that's just one of the things that we'll mark down as what would have to be true. That would be a how we would go do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, for people who are listening, I liberally stole that idea from a great book called Playing to Win by Roger Martin and A.G. Lafley, the former CEO of Procter. Yeah. And but that one question completely changes from being objection oriented and I'm going to shoot down your argument and I don't like your data and whatever. But what would have to be true, Bob, for you to be on board with this? Or what would have to be true about the marketplace? And so, I like how you described it, though, that like by the end of that whole process, your team had kind of gelled and crystallized around, which is really cool. But then you made the point, this is where we need to go next quickly, is the operational piece. You describe yourself more as an operator than a strategy guy. Why is that so important? Because you had the great idea. The team came up with a great plan. And I know it's kind of a self-evident question, but why is the operational part really the magic at the end of the day?
I think about our industry, and I'm blessed and grateful to be in a very purpose-driven industry, and I'm very proud to be part of Merck. I think at the end of the day, strategy is great, but if we want to serve our mission as an industry, agnostic to company, of serving patients and bringing innovation to patients, you have to be able to do that as a commercial organization with a focus on the right customer at the right time with the right messaging. And I think inherently I enjoy operations because to me, that's the real world. That's where the rubber hits the road, right? It is, I enjoy the adrenaline in a role that is an operational role because like every role, an operational role has its roller coasters. Believe me, I've been on my downs and I've been on my ups. And when you're in the trough, you're trying to figure out, apart from sweating bullets, you're trying to figure out what do I need to do with my team to get out of the trough I'm in? Because I'm not going to continue to live in this trough. This is not my home. And when you are in your highs, you got to figure out how to navigate that next roller coaster coming your way, right? And so I think the fact that it's so dynamic, the fact that it's reflective of the world we live in, and the fact that I think it really tests people, and that's not to say that other functions don't, and this is where it's what I'm personally passionate about. I enjoy an operator's role because that's what, to me, gives me the greatest challenge. It has probably taught me the greatest. It's given me the greatest learnings in my career. And it's also given me the greatest highs, along with, a combination of my lows and highs. And fortunately, I'm blessed I've had many more highs than lows. But I've never had my highs without learning from my lows. And I think that's important, as I reflect on my journey. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so in the minute or so that we have left, this episode was cast as a leadership triangle. People, strategy, and operations. how would you put a bow on that? Like, what are the 1, 2, 3 things that you really hope, based on all of your considerable experience, that you hope that people can take away and apply, as they go to work tomorrow?
It's a great question to kind of close to wrap up our conversation. I think people are the heartbeat of every organization, agnostic to function, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's people that make or break performance, people that make or break organizations. I think to really ensure that you are winning, whether it be an organization, a brand team, or a function, right? You've got to make sure that you clearly have first that right tapestry of talent. And I really think that thinking about talent as a quilt, or thinking about talent as a canvas, given my personal passions, is something which is important, because that's when you start to focus on that breadth and diversity of thinking and breadth and diversity of experiences, along with certain very fundamental traits: the passion, the authenticity, the compassion, the leadership gravitas, the humility, the learning agility. It's this team that comes together and says, here's what we're looking to accomplish. Why? And how does what we want to accomplish fit in with the goals of the larger organization? So making that connection is important first for the leadership team, but then communicating that across the broader organization is even more critical, because leadership teams don't drive success. It's every single colleague across an organization that drives success. And so making sure, and that's some of the things that I have done in my career, is really worked on skip level meetings, right? And in some cases, skip +2, because I really want to I love working with people. I love engaging with people, and I love getting to know people. And it's when you really get to know people as human beings first, is when you get to know their passions and their fears, their highs and their lows, right? And so coming back to what I was saying, ensuring that it spreads like this raging fire of ambition and energy, but again, grounded on facts, grounded on assumptions, grounded on realism, plus ambition, you can achieve just some incredible things, as long as you've got amazing bosses and mentors to support you. And as I reflect on my journey, I wouldn't have achieved this first without the amazing people I've had a chance to work with, that I've learned so much from and continue to, but also amazing leaders that have inspired me, that have challenged me, that have critiqued me, and have really grown me through my career, through my roles, through the companies that I have been fortunate to be a part of, including my current organization that I'm very proud to be a part of. And the environment, which we don't control. So having the ability to really navigate that environment, and also look at multiple scenarios and how you would navigate your organization through those scenarios, is an important skill or an important muscle. Mm-hmm. And so I think people at the center, strategy is basically the umbrella, and the operations kind of link and bring it all together.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is great. I knew that we would struggle with time, because we could probably do part 2 for another hour easily. But I'm going to borrow your expression, the tapestry of talent. I think that's going to be my LinkedIn post tomorrow. That's a great expression. But what I really admire about you, and why I was so excited to have you join me, is you do embody the humility and the respect aspects of how you treat everyone, whether they're your boss or someone who's reporting to you or a peer. But at the same time, you've got you want to get stuff done, but you want to get stuff done for the right reasons, and that you're guided by a passion to help other folks, whether they're colleagues or patients or your own customers. So, Ashish, I just always enjoy our time together. You have a wealth of experience to draw on, and I just so appreciate you sharing a few minutes of that with us today.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really enjoyed yet another conversation. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation offline.
Awesome. And everyone, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day today. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you are listening to this on whatever your favorite podcast platform is, I thank you for that and wish you a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.